His writings for children were playful. They were not didactic. They were folksy. What else can I say about his writing style? The style actually changes in Robert's Adventures. It sort of changes when Robert's a baby. He's sort of more childlike in the language he uses and in the way he sort of tells the narrative, and it gets more mature as the subject gets more mature as the book goes on. Sometimes he uses wordplay. He creates characters. His books for children are really, everyone has a name. Even if it's a little folk story, he retells the folk story. He makes up a name for the protagonist so that it's not a story about a farmer. It's a story about a farmer named Moshe. He wanted the children to understand that this really happened to a real person. And in fact, he, in his book, Jews of Long Ago, he argues in his preface that if folk stories are told again and again and again, that means it really happened to real people. You wouldn't keep telling the story if it didn't somehow map onto real lived experience. Maybe not necessarily historical experience, but true experience. And there's a distinction there. So his characters always had names and they were set in particular places. And what else can I say about his writing style? He wrote an article in a journal called Culture and Education, Kultur und Erziehung, called Kinderliteratur oder Literatur für Kinder, children's literature or literature for children. And in this article, this is one of the adult writings that I've been able to dig my teeth into and translate. One of his writings, not in any of his books, and we can come back to that in a moment. But so in this article about children's literature, he sort of lays down his philosophy. And he says that it's first of all very hard, that children's literature does not get a lot of respect. He's writing in the 40s. And that there is a problem, particularly when writing in Yiddish for children, because you have children who are at a certain age of emotional maturity, but whose vocabulary is not up to their level of maturity. So writing for children in a second language is, because for every child at this point, his audience, he knew that they were learning Yiddish, that it was not their mother tongue for many, many of the children. And even if it was their mother tongue, they were being schooled in a different language. So their literacy level in Yiddish might not have been as high. So what do you do about that? And what he wrote was that the most important thing to do is not to write down to children, first of all. And he said, children's writers start with this formula. Come, my little children, would you like to hear something you've never heard before? Well, sit down and be nice children, and I will tell you something wonderful. And he said, if you start that way, you're just showing that you really have no clue what children are really like or what they want. What's very funny is when I found a Moshe Nadir story that began with precisely those words. That was a kick. I knew who he was making fun of. Or all the Yiddish children's writers were using that formula, and he was sort of bristling about it. So his point was not to write down to them. So how do you not write down to them, and yet it should be very, very simple? And he said the key to it, and he quoted Mani Leib, he quoted Perish Hertzbein. His writings for adults were very scholarly. They tended to have footnotes, and they tended to show off his broad range of reading. But he cited other children's writers whose work he did admire as saying that it should be an experience of wonder, that children are experiencing everything for the first time. He quoted a writer who saw the beautiful blue sky in Italy and couldn't remember where he had seen it before. Such an incredible clear blue sky. And then the writer remembered, when he was a little child and looked at the sky for the first time, it seemed that blue to him because he had never seen a blue sky before. He said, that's what you have to do. So you write as though you, the writer, are experiencing what you're writing about for the first time. And if you do that, then it will be simple. You'll strip away all the irrelevant details. You know, what's amazing about a summer day is what it feels like when a cool breeze picks up. You know, you wouldn't get into, I don't know what, you know, atmospherics and how, you know, the air looks when the sun radiates in a certain way. You wouldn't talk about the details of the clothing you were wearing. It was just you're hot, and then there's this feeling of relief, and it felt like the air was cooler and clearer, and like that you were alive again, or that sense of wonder. So he that was his goal, and I think he actually got to it in a lot of his children's writing.